Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Grab a notepad and a pen so that you can jot down a note, some kind of action item that you will implement in your business today, because that's what it's all about. We need to grow your business, drive it forward with new ideas. Deadlines. How do you feel about deadlines? Let me ask you this. Have you noticed that sometimes your people, and that includes yourself, fail to get things done? And if so, is that possibly a symptom of ineffective management? And of course it is. So what can I recommend? You guessed it, deadlines. We've talked in the past about the implementation management strategy known as RACI, R-A-C-I, which is responsibility, accountability, consulted, and informed. And then the other part of the RACI strategy is that you need to have deadlines associated with all of those tasks. There is something about a deadline that is very effective in making sure that things come to fruition, that things become implemented. And I don't want you to underestimate the power of deadlines with your people and with yourself. So the degree to which you have noticed in your organization that things don't always get done, ask yourself, have you instituted deadlines associated with those tasks? And I can tell you right now, the answer is probably no. If the answer is yes, then we take it to the next step, which is accountability. So take a look at that. Ask yourself anything that you want to get done yourself, let's start with yourself. Is there something that you've been meaning to implement in your business and you know you've got to get it done and you're procrastinating? Well, put a deadline. It's just as simple as that. Put a deadline in place and make that deadline public. Let somebody else know and document it somewhere so that you can see this has to be done by Friday, or this has to be done by noon. This has to be done by the end of the year, the end of the quarter. Has to be done this week, no matter what. And just the idea of a deadline is very powerful in making things happen, bringing things to fruition. Now, when you assign that deadline to yourself, you have to commit to it. And that's why I recommend, for the purpose of accountability, that you tell someone else, you share that with stakeholders. You may say to someone else in your business or in your life, you may say, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, and I've got to get it done by Friday. Please remind me if you see me not getting it done. Maybe ask me. Give your people and other people in your life permission to hold you accountable. That's one of the things when you're the boss and you're in management, is you need to have some sort of degree of accountability yourself. Now, if you don't have that, then I would recommend that you reach out to us and maybe join our VIPs group, where you can meet with other business owners and entrepreneurs, and we can hold one another accountable. And those deadlines, when you check back in the next group, then there is a moderator and other people just like you who are running business that have committed to accomplishing particular tasks and objectives by the time they reconvene. So we can help you with that accountability. Now, with your people, let's go on to your people here. I noticed within my business, I had a manager reach out to me and say that a particular thing was not getting done and he wanted advice on that. And I said, well, it all comes down to accountability, but let me ask you this. Do the people have a deadline? See, what happens with your people is they get a whole lot of things thrown at them day to day, and the boss is coming up with new ideas, and not everything sticks. And they know, just like kids, they know if they can fly under the radar long enough, there's a chance that some of this stuff will be forgotten. Now, of course, this doesn't describe everyone in your organization. I'm sure you have some very conscientious achievers who would never do that. But it's one of these things that's sort of human nature. Once in a while, we all kind of do something. If it's something we'd rather not do, we put it off, we procrastinate, and maybe we wait to see how serious the boss or whoever, the parent, the other stakeholder is in holding us accountable to that thing. And so that's what's going on in your organization. If you notice this symptom where things aren't getting done, people are waiting and seeing. They're kind of looking to see, is there going to be accountability associated with this? The first step to accountability is the deadline, because here's what's going to happen. If you try to hold somebody accountable, hey, you didn't do this, that, or the other, what they're going to do is they're going to use as an excuse, oh no, I'm going to do it. I have that on my list of things to do. I've just got some priorities right now. And hey, boss, you're always talking about prioritizing things. We don't want to deviate from that. Of course, we want to make sure that the first things are done first, those things which are most important get done. But a deadline helps you to establish that. So by taking a particular objective or a task and associating a deadline with it, what you're in effect saying is, this is more important and urgent, or it's really, a deadline's about urgency, and we should only be doing things that are important. So by ascribing a particular deadline to something, you are defining the urgency of the task and helping people prioritize. So help your people, and then you won't get an excuse later that they say, oh, I'm going to do that, I was going to do that, and you'll never know whether it was going to be done or not. There's probably a myriad of things in your organization that haven't been done over the past few months or last number of years, and I want you today to sort of itemize those things. Ask yourself, are these things that still should be done? And if the answer is a lot of them, no, they shouldn't be done, then you may want to ask yourself whether or not you're doing a good job of prioritizing and plotting the practicality of implementation of your various ideas. But if the list you brainstorm and come up with, most of those things still do need to be done and they're not done, and you become frustrated, don't let the frustration get the better of you. It's just a symptom. It's a symptom that you're not using RACI or some other management strategy for implementation, and you're not holding your people accountable. And that's all that's happening. They're just waiting and seeing. And now what you can do with this new list is you can prioritize it. You can decide, you can assign a deadline to each of those things as you delegate it out. You're empowering other people to do these things, but now you're defining for them when it needs to be done by. It will get done by that time. Now, what if it doesn't? That's where accountability kicks in. And we've made videos and had discussions. You should revisit those things about accountability. If somebody fails to meet a deadline, you will hold them accountable. You will reprimand them. You'll give them some coaching, and you will show them that we create a culture here of accountability. We're serious about our deadlines. Now, it's perfectly acceptable for someone to get back to you before a deadline and to ask for an extension. That is one caveat I'd like you to implement as you start to use deadlines to increase your effectiveness in management. The other best practice or tip I would give you is to allow your people to come up with the deadlines. So let's say you have task A, B, or C, and you're speaking to somebody, you're communicating in some way to somebody that you want them to get this done. You sort of communicate in a way that is, I'm not exactly sure all the things you have on your plate right now, what your capacities are, and how urgently you're working on the other things that fall within the realm of your responsibility. But here's something that's very important to me to get done. Can you tell me, when can you commit to having this completed by? So that's the deadline. And let them come up with it. Now, it's okay if they give you something that's unreasonable. You can then sort of negotiate that deadline. You say, well, that doesn't work for me. I need this done no later than whatever. But instead of just arbitrarily coming up with a deadline and dictating it to someone as a mandate, ask them, tell them it's important to you and you'd like this done. Be open to the idea that they may have some other pressing items that are really important that they've got to work on, and you ask them, when can they have this done by? Once they commit that to you, you might want to say, okay, so you're committed by the 15th, I'm going to have this done. By Monday, this will be completed. Okay, great. Please make a note of that. Document this somewhere. If you're using a RACI tool in your database or something like that, you can document the deadline in there. I really recommend, if you're just communicating verbally, it might be okay, but there's so many things going on in your business that I would set some kind of reminder. I would put it somewhere documented, even if it's just an email, something in your calendar, and put the onus on your people. Please send me an email that outlines what we just discussed, that you will have that done no later than Monday as agreed. So those two best practices there are: number one, you allow your people to set the deadline and you document it. I guess there's three best practices. You document that, set some reminders, and then you also allow them to request an extension with a valid reason, but they cannot request an extension past the deadline. They can only request an extension prior to the deadline. So those are the things you need to define for people. Show them this video and say, look, this is how we're going to handle deadlines. This is how we're going to hold our feet to the fire and become more accountable and become masters of implementation through the use of deadlines. And remember, when somebody fails to meet a deadline, then you have to hold them accountable. There has to be a formal meeting, which should involve their supervisor, the person who failed to meet the deadline, the person who was responsible for accomplishing the objective, for completing the task, and somebody from HR. It needs to be formal. Then you have to document it. They will give you their excuse and their reason, but it's not valid. The only thing they could possibly say, especially if you followed my best practices in allowing them to come up, they might say, oh, I underestimated how busy I was and I needed an extension. But that's not valid, because what you can say is, well, we've already discussed this. Extensions are perfectly fine. Things come up. We can have unexpected demands on our time, and I'm a reasonable person. You could have reached out to me. The expectation is that you reach out to me and ask for an extension, because people are relying on you. People are dependent on the work that you're completing, and we don't want the deadline to come and go and it's not done. So there is no real valid excuse for somebody missing a deadline. The other thing you don't want to allow is a chronic situation where people are asking for extensions. If people are chronically asking for extensions, then you realize they're just looking, this is the loophole for them. They're looking for a way around to circumvent the system that you've set up for accountability. And again, you can meet with them formally, with HR, with the supervisor, with the person, and you can explain that this is, you're asking for too many extensions. Maybe suggest to them, hey, since you're the one coming up with the deadline, maybe we need to take a look and give them some coaching on how to manage their time better, what things are tying up. This is a great opportunity to coach somebody and mentor them on becoming more effective themselves, because you're not angry with a person if they just legitimately, they're really, really working hard and there's all this effort, but they're missing deadlines because they're a little disorganized and they need some coaching on how to put first things first, on how to manage their day and prioritize these types of things. And you have to lead by example. You have to be exemplary in your management style and make sure that people follow what you're doing so you're not missing deadlines. So those are the two concepts, or rather the two ways I wanted you to consider deadlines, is use them to help yourself, to hold yourself accountable to getting things accomplished, and certainly use them with your people as part of your implementation management strategy to make sure that things get done. So you are going to reach out to your people. First, you're gonna share this video with them and you're gonna say, okay, here's what we're gonna do to improve. Then what you're going to do is, when something comes up, you're going to delegate it to somebody and you're going to ask them. You're going to say, this is really important to you. If it's not important to you, then don't delegate it. Put it on a parking lot, something that later you will implement. But once it's time to implement something and you're assigning a responsibility to somebody, you're going to say, it's really important to you. Hey, how long do you think you'll need to get this done? When can I count on you having this completed by? Then make sure that they understand they've committed to the deadline. So use that word when you use in the word tracks you use. Okay, so you're committed to having this done by this. I can count on you to have this done by this date. Okay, great. Remember, ask for an extension in advance if something comes up, but I want to make sure that it's a valid reason, that you didn't procrastinate. Don't ask for an extension unless you have a very valid reason that you need one. And then hold people accountable. If they fail to meet deadlines, make sure that you hold them accountable. And I skipped one of those things there, which is to document this somewhere. I would recommend that you have tool that you use, such as a RACI tool that's built into a database. You can also do this with a spreadsheet. Again, contact our company if you want us to set that up for you. It's very simple for us to do. We can set up a simple application that you can use to make this happen. So you have to document this and remind yourself. Otherwise, you're going to forget about deadlines that you put in place. The whole system falls apart. So there has to be accountability for you and your management team and everyone to meet these deadlines. That's the concept. Deadlines. They will work. They will help you to implement things. They will help you to drive your business forward and innovate. Leave a comment and let me know whether or not you are using deadlines. Are they effective? Is there something that I missed here that we need to include so that people can implement this strategy more effectively? We need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.